In this episode, we continue to celebrate 90s November by taking a look at some forgotten sci-fi toys from, you guessed it, the 1990s. So, stick around. Dorks and Dorkettes, and welcome to 90s November. My name is Rob, and in this episode of Nostalgia Syndrome, we'll be taking a look at forgotten sci-fi toys from the 1990s. There was a definite drop-off when it came to fantasy and sci-fi toys in the 90s. Imagination seemed to go out the window, and most toy lines were based on franchises, either cartoons, TV shows, movies, what have you. So, in order to compile my list of forgotten sci-fi toys, we are looking for anything that is not attached to any of the things that I mentioned. These are the ones that were built on pure imagination or built on pure inspiration, we'll say. So, without further ado, let's get to number one. Remember that thing that I just mentioned about toy lines being powered by pure inspiration? Well, this one, yep, it's all about the inspiration and buying secondhand molds from Mattel. Anyway, our first forgotten sci-fi toy comes from Brazil, actually, from a toy company called Gulliver. And these are the Future Warriors. As you can see from the package artwork, they held nothing back when it came to being inspired by American comic books. We see people that are inspired by the Ultraverse comics, Marvel comics, and all points in between. When I mentioned the secondhand molds from Mattel, these were made from Secret Wars molds. Now, they come with some of the accessories, like this dude comes with Wolverine's claws. Now, of course, they did some retooling of their own, which I find totally awesome. It seems like they took the 80s molds from the Secret Wars and tried to blend them with the 90s extremism that we saw in comic books. I mean, we see inspirations of different vampires, cyborgs, even this dude that looks like Deadpool. And yeah, I mean, I give them props for not just pumping out recolored versions of the Secret Wars figures. I mean, they did a little bit of work, and I think that's super cool. They also came with cloth goods. Well, some of them did anyway. And yeah, I'm always a sucker for cloth goods. Anyway, I'm not hating. I think they did just enough to separate themselves from Secret Wars, and like I said, it's interesting that they, embraced that extreme comic culture that was in comic books of the 90s. So anyway, I'm really curious to see if any of these have survived, and honestly, I say this a lot, but I'd be interested to have a few in my collection. Our second forgotten sci-fi toy from the 1990s is probably one that would have been found in your local Big Lots, Ollie's, Five and Dime stores. These are the Star Troopers, and they were released by New Ray in 1996. There were 3 2-packs released, and each one had a different theme. You had one that were the humans, one that were the robots, and one that were the aliens. Now, each one of these figures had awesome metallic bodies and various accessories. They also released a dune buggy that we'll probably talk about in a future episode. And they had little wind-up robots in the toy line as well. I'm always a sucker for wind-up toys. I mean, these aren't the best, but they're still awesome sci-fi toys. I mean, I think they were probably inspired by the Captain Power figures of the 80s because of that metallic body, robotic type of structure that they had. Now, I have no idea if any of these have even survived enough to be on the secondary market, so I'd be curious to see how much they would go for. Our third toy line is probably another one that was found like in those secondary stores, and this is Galactic Force. The odd thing is there was only one single figure released for the Space Trooper, and I mean, he looks like your very bare basic galactic fighter, if you will. I mean, the main selling point on the package is that it comes with 2 weapons. I mean, if that's all it really has to offer, that's not that great. But the one thing that I think is super awesome is this huge multi-pack that was released. Like I said, it's odd. There was one single figure and then this multi-pack. This thing came with an awesome vehicle, 12 various 3 3/4 inch action figures, and 3 motorcycles. I don't know how much this would have cost at the time, but I'm assuming it's probably worth every penny. I mean, any 3 3/4 figure you can blend into your Playtime universe of G.I. Joe, Star Wars, what have you. Add an awesome like APC vehicle and 3 motorcycles, you have yourself a fun afternoon planned. Now our fourth toy may come from one of the bigger toy companies out there, but they were still guilty of being heavily inspired by one of their own toy lines. This is Vortek, released by Kenner in 1996. I'm not going to mince words here. This is Mask. They actually repurposed a lot of Mask vehicles and figures for Vortek. I mean, just look at some of these. I mean, let's put this one side by side with Mask's jackhammer. I mean, it's practically the same, other than a paint job and a futuristic theme to it. I ain't hating because I wasn't able to get a lot of Mask toys growing up because they were just a little bit more expensive than buying like a G.I. Joe figure. So if I would have stumbled upon Vortek, it would have been like a dream come true because I would be able to play with those Mask figures and vehicles without paying that higher price. Now, I don't know how much they charged for Vortek, but I'm sure on the secondary market they are a lot cheaper than trying to track down those Mask toys. Now, it's not tit for tat, but if you just want to play with a transforming vehicle and little figures with masks, I mean, who cares what name is on the box? Our last forgotten 90s sci-fi toy line was one that started to utilize a very popular feature throughout the 90s, and that is sound effects. This is Space Attack by Toy Island, and it was released in 1991. Now, these figures are 6 1/4 inches in height, and look to have pretty good posability, and on their chest they have buttons that, as the back of the package says, spacemen really talk, and great laser weapon sounds. I mean, what more do you really need? I mean, it also came with various vehicles and space monsters, which, yeah, that's awesome. So, I give props to Toy Island for trying something different, because these are wholly original, not inspired by anyone else, and for 1991, throwing some sound features in your toy was a pretty new novelty. I'm just going to point out, one of my favorites of the figures that they released was Delta 6. For some reason, it just reminds me of Snake Eyes with this awesome head sculpt. And, I mean, he's in various blues. Give him a katana, he could be Space Snake Eyes. And, yeah, that's pretty awesome. But I'm a fan of this toy line, and like I've said multiple times just in this episode, I'm really curious to see if they have survived to the secondary market, how much they are, and if by chance that sound feature still works on them. Okay folks, that was a look at 5 forgotten sci-fi toys from the 1990s. And like I said, some of them were heavily inspired by other toy lines, and some of them are pretty unique in their own ways, and I find that super awesome. And if you did find this enjoyable, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everyone. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this, or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you will be notified whenever there's new episodes. So anyway, until next time, thank you for watching. Keep being rad, and stay dorky.